about what's going on with Republican Congressman from California, Ed Royce. He is the chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Chairman, thank you for joining us. Just to stay on immediate topic for a moment, do you have any information about any credible attacks planned around the 9/11 anniversary? Is there any real reason for people to be worried?
No, we don't have any information about credible planning for an attack, but what we do know is that there's several thousand Europeans with passports that could allow them to get into the United States who are fighting on behalf of ISIS, as well as over 100 Americans, a couple hundred Australians. And so this is one of the concerns.
So, based on what you worry about with these passports, tell us how that threads into what you want to hear from the president. What does he have to say to you in terms of a plan to get your support?
Well, I think the reason we need a strategy here is because the main focus on an anti-terrorist mission is to make certain that the terrorists do not have a base of operation, a sanctuary, with which they can plan attacks against the United States. And of course, ISIS right now has established that capability. They do have a terrorist training camp in which Chechens and others are training these fighters from around the world in how to create explosives, how to carry out attacks. And so in terms of a strategy, it's important to hit that base, take it out. It's important that the fighting be done not by U.S. infantry, but instead by the Kurdish forces, the Iraqi security forces, Free Syrian Army. We anticipate that some kind of strategy would be laid out. Also important that other countries, European, NATO partners, certainly the Arab League, come on board. And there was some interesting endorsements this morning from the Arab League for a strategy, comprehensive strategy to fight ISIS. But all of that takes presidential leadership. That, I think, is what we want to hear, a strategic plan laid out, that defines those goals.
Chairman, you know all of this much better than I do and most people watching right now. How is the fight against ISIS any different based on the criteria you just offered up than what's going on with al-Qaeda, the Taliban, the terrorist network in Yemen? I mean, it seems like you've put a new name on something, made it a new idea, but it really isn't, is it?
Actually, it is al-Qaeda. This was an extension of al-Qaeda. It was another al-Qaeda franchise. And it's the same movement. And yes, this is one of the frustrating things, is that in this case, ISIS was not hit for 7 months when we saw them gathering and moving across the Syrian border into towns in Iraq. And as they moved across Iraq, the original recommendation of the president was use armed drones, strike them while they're out on the open desert. They're an inviting target. We all saw what happened during the first Gulf War when air power was used effectively. So if we certainly are not going to support U.S. infantry on the ground, but airstrikes have been used for a long time against al-Qaeda.
Is it because you're afraid of the Poles?
They should have been used against...
Is it because you're afraid of the Poles? Why would you endorse boots on the ground?
We are afraid of a quagmire. That's why we don't want U.S. infantry. And we are tired of those most immediately affected in the region not carrying the burden. Why isn't it the responsibility of the Arab League and other countries in that region to provide the infantry? So what we say is, yes, we'll help arm you. We'll give you the anti-tank missiles, to the Kurdish forces and so forth. But no more having the United States put its infantry in there. No. What we have the expertise in here where we can add some value is with air power, and we want to see our allies in this fight with us. NATO's got it, some of these NATO members need to step up, and so does the Arab League.
Amen to that. Let me see if I can get you to be the president's advocate on a couple of points that are going to be key. The first, if you want to stop them, you have to bomb them where they are. That's what you just said. That means Syria. Would you back the president if he plans to go into Syria?
Correct.
You know that gets sticky. Assad has big defense forces. And second, the New York Times has a big headline that should come as no surprise. This could take 3 years. Could take 13. We've been doing this since the 90s. Would you back the president on telling the American people it's going to be a long time, it's going to be expensive?
First of all, in a bipartisan way, myself and Elliot Engel, the ranking Democrat on our committee, urged early on that action be taken in Syria to take out ISIS with the use of air power and by arming the Free Syrian Army, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason we did that was because ISIS was growing exponentially. The reason we need to take them out, as I said, is because they're going to use that as a base to train for other terrorists to, you know, expand the attacks. So yes, that is necessary. That's a necessary step, is to use air power to do that.
And 3 years.
Well, I don't think that I don't think any of us know how long this would take. What we do know is that, you know, if attacks had been made against ISIS with air power when they were on the move, they could have been prevented from taking this territory. Now, there are only 17,000 ISIS fighters. So my presumption is Kurdish forces, once they're given the kind of weaponry that they've requested, Iraqi security forces, Free Syrian Army, if they're armed, there's talk of you know, the president laying out a plan to do that. We will see. On Tuesday, the president will lay out his plan, and next week the Secretary of State will come before the committee that I chair in order to go into more details on that plan, and we can understand, I think, the full ramifications. But I think the American public wants to hear the plan. Members of Congress want to hear it laid out in terms of a comprehensive strategy, and that has not existed up until now.
Well, and as you know, it's a very complex situation. If we had a great strategy to do it, it would have been we'd be in a much different situation today than we were. We've had trouble with strategy for over a decade and a half. But Chairman Ed Royce, thank you very much for joining us. This is an ongoing conversation. Look forward to having you back on New Day after you get to hear from the President and the Secretary of State. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.